So the last thing is that I would want to touch on is what are the writers thinking? Like keep in mind, there's a lot of hands this has to go through.
Yeah.
And I go about this all the time. I'm always bewildered by like, that was funny. What was that actually funny? Like if I sat down with a writing team and went scene by scene,
Yes.
right? As I'm watching the movie and I'm asking them questions because I'm getting it straight from the horse's mouth, right?
Mhm.
Like, was that funny to you? Did
Yeah.
you write that line? Who wrote that line?
Yeah.
You? Was that actually funny to you?
I mean,
And
maybe
not like a
it's
grooming session, but I'm genuinely
may
asking, like, am I out of touch?
well, I was gonna say maybe it's one of those things that, like, they would collectively agree that they're like, it might be funny if they got the right actor to do it. Because in reality, that's the 2 differences of, like, there's the written word and then how it's directed to be said, and then the actor's way of portraying it, right? There's a lot of different iterations between, so maybe it's just one of those things where they write down this line, they're like, "Is this funny? I don't know, let them worry about it later down to figure out how to make it funny." And then it
Yeah.
just doesn't.
But okay, so maybe if I had the writers and the producers and director in the same room, right? Alex Kurtzman's in there, whoever directed this movie's in there, and then the writers.
Mhm.
And it's like, which one of you can resolve my confusion as to why you thought this would be a good idea? Because there's tons of breakdowns as to why scenes don't work online.
Mhm.
So you can watch that, adopt this specific scene. There's scenes where like all the characters are like bickering. I had a hard time even understanding them
Yeah.
sometimes because they're all talking over each other. And but it's such rapid fire quips, rapid fire unfunny quips
Mhm.
where they're all trying to talk over each other. And I'm like, what the heck did they even say? Like, I can't even get the joke because it was, this isn't Guardians of the Galaxy as much as you're trying to push that because those are made by comedic actors with good timing. That's Bradley
Mhm.
Cooper and Chris Pratt, who are, objectively funny
Right.
as actors. And like, you got Rocket Raccoon and then Star Wars and stuff. And so in that moment where I'm like, is it or would they own up to it? Like, would they be like, "Yeah, you're right. That just didn't come together the way we had kind of thought that in our head." Or would they
Mhm.
go the opposite direction? Be like, "No, it's perfect. It's actually just you." And they'd stand their ground, and it becomes an ego thing. But or it'd be complete ambivalence. Like, shoot, we don't know. We had Chat GPT write the script.
Mhm.
Like, this is what it came up with.
Right.
And I don't know. The problem is I watch these movies and I don't know because I'm like, it's fine if you can just have a series of bad writers and whatnot, but some of them have created good stuff in the
Mhm.
past, and it's like, how does it not come in? How does it not all come together here? But then just as well, why does everybody act like an idiot? This is supposed to be like Section 31, hyper competent.
I think it's a disconnect between what makes sense logically for this character based off of in these scenarios with this background and what they think that the audience wants to see. And I think that's kind of how they let a lot of this stuff make their decisions is they're deciding what is going to sell. Like what is it that is going to open up the most markets that the most people are going to want to view and they don't and honestly, I don't know if they even care because I'm trying to think like they have so many different forms of marketing for these different shows and the money that it makes, right? So this may be bad publicity, but bad publicity is still publicity. I mean, like everyone's talking about Section 31 and how terrible it is. But at the same time, this is something that's going to get more views and it's going to get people interested, right? And they're going to learn the wrong lesson that like, oh, it's just the old nerds that are the ones that don't like it anymore, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, this is probably going to cause Star Trek to change hands now, which is good. There's a possibility it can get in the hands of somebody that actually wants to do it. And I'm sure that whoever gets a hold of it next time is going to market it as a return to what Star Trek actually is, because that's at least a base to start running, right? If you can get like if you can hire some old writers or somebody that's involved and that kind of stuff and show that you're ready to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. It doesn't actually matter if you do. I mean, like, you'll have people arguing that it is or is not, as long as you have something to, but I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. People are buying it, I guess. I mean, but obviously the bad publicity now for the terrible rating scores is gonna hurt it.
Yeah, I don't know. I still just don't get the decisions being made to be such a departure in tone to create something in order to create something new,
Mhm,
right? You can and that's fine. It's like, okay, well, we want to show the fringes, right? The outside of the Federation, outside the utopia. What are those people doing? That's fine, right? And that's fine if it looks different than Star Trek. I'm fine with that too.
mhm,
A new aesthetic. I kind of hated that, like, I mean, I understood it from a production standpoint, but when you really think about it, like, Earth has how many different groups of people
mhm.
that all live vastly different lives. And when you look at Star Trek, it's like, no, Klingons are the warrior people, all wear the same warrior gear all the time.
Didn't they joke about that in Lower Decks? Wasn't that
I'm sure
I
they
think
do.
that was a
There's a lot of
joke.
meta jokes in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we're supposed to believe that humanity is like the only one that has like a diversity,
Mhm.
you know? And again, we got Tuvok and Spock and stuff like that. So obviously diversity exists to some extent, but they both acted the same exact way. Like they still followed the same spiritual religion.
Right.
So it wasn't that different.
Mhm.
Whereas you have people who, worship all manners of things on earth,
Right.
like thousands of religions and spiritual beliefs. And so, to think that one culture or one planet is one culture, I mean, maybe it gets there once you become a globally oriented race
Mhm.
of people, but I don't know. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with all that, right? Sure, take your liberties all you want. But if all you're going to give me is this generic spy thriller
Mhm.
that doesn't thrill, like, how am I going to enjoy this? You haven't made the characters interesting. You've made them bicker. They've been idiots the whole time. Again, this is Section 31. And what we've seen in Section 31 are they have their finger on the pulse, right? They understand what needs to be done. They understand what the stakes are.
Mhm.
They get it done. They execute efficiently. And then turn it over to these like five people and they're bumbling idiots
Yeah.
and who can't work together. Like supposedly they've been on other missions together, but all they do is give each other shit the entire time.
Yeah.
Like they hate each other.
I mean, in reality, a Section 31 movie should really look like a it would be a really I mean, like, I guess that's a good
That
que
is actually that's a great thing is
yeah, maybe
what
that's a topic of
movie.
another video, though, because I think that that's a
Yeah.
whole discussion in itself, because what does it look like?
Yeah, what does a Section 31 what would I think a Section 31 movie look like? That is well, that's a good idea that we should put a pin in
Yeah,
till next time.
absolutely. Yeah, so I guess final verdicts for Section 31 as a movie as whole is in order?
Unwatchable garbage. You'll watch it because it has Star Trek in the title.
Yeah, there's literally almost anything is more worth the 90 minutes, and thank God, by the way, it was only 90 minutes. Could you imagine if this was 2.5 hours?
I thought it was gonna be like a six-part
Oh,
miniseries
fuck that.
crammed into
Fuck that.
crammed into a movie. So I was like, "Man, is this thing gonna like, am I turning this on? Is this gonna be like 3 hours?" And I
Ugh.
looked and it was only an hour and a half. I'm like, "Oh my god,
I
thank God," because
remember I
I was about 20 minutes in. Yeah.
I remember you talking about it, and you were saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna watch the Section 31 miniseries." I'm like, "Well, I think that's gonna be the only thing he's gonna be happy about, when it comes to this title, because it's not a miniseries, it's only a movie."
God,
I would
at
agree.
least I can watch, my least watched and hated movie is like Star Trek 5,
Mhm,
and I would watch that a million more times. I would rather watch Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier,
mhm.
a million times before I ever watch this again.
Yeah. I
There's nothing more to get from this movie than the first and only time I'll probably watch it.
Yeah.
And I can't say that for any other piece of Star Trek media, even Discovery. I could go back
Yeah.
like a year or 2 and be like, "Was it as bad as
Yeah.
I remember?"
I know this movie is
But
as
this
bad as
one,
I always will remember it to be. Yes.
yeah.
There is no doubt in my mind that there is no digestion period long enough to make this movie tolerable. It's gonna be forgotten, like you said, in a footnote, like, in this era. I can't
And
imagine
what's
who would
even
ever
worse is
view it.
that he produced this. Kurtzman produced this thinking like my magnum opus
Yeah.
for
He
Star Trek.
he has
Thank
wanted
you.
this movie or show, as he originally viewed it, from, like, the first season of Discovery. Like, I feel like this was one of the selling points for him, like, he really wanted to do something with Section 31, he just thought it was so damn cool, and he just, like you were saying, just didn't understand it, and every single time, like, as soon as I remember in the news, as soon as he suggested that he wanted to do this, everyone was like, "That's a terrible idea. Like, you don't even understand what the heck Section 31 even is." And he kept pushing for it, and they kept pushing him back. And eventually they got him down to a movie, and then they got him finally down to like a 90-minute movie. And now he thinks it's, like you said, his magnum opus, but it's not. You failed. So now Paramount will take
Yeah,
the
you're
franchise
a
away from
terrible
you.
writer. You're a terrible producer. Like,
You know?
please stop making Star Trek content.
Yeah.
If you want to make so this is the thing. I thought Star Trek 2009. J.J. Abrams made Star Trek 2009.
Yeah.
Obviously, it looks not like Star Trek has ever looked before.
Mhm.
I didn't think it was a particularly awful movie.
Yeah.
But it's not Star Trek to me. It's a vanity project to what Star Trek would be if it was Star Wars.
Yeah.
And at least the not the good parts of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like the action, or at least sorry, even the action is good in Star Wars in the older movies, but at least like if you looked at the if all you knew about Star Wars was the space battles because
Mhm.
you didn't watch the whole movie.
Just on some of the cool
And
ships.
yeah. Then that's why you made Star Trek 2009. And again, it was an enjoyable watch for what it was, but then they made 2 more, and it's like, no, this formula doesn't work
Yeah.
more than once. Like,
You probably
but
would remember Star Trek 2009 a little bit better if it didn't continue. I mean, and it wasn't even the best one, in my opinion, of the 3, but if it would have just been a one-time, like, okay, J.J. Abrams' take on what Star Trek would look like, oh, that was
yeah,
different. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't quite like what Star Trek actually is, but it was an interesting view of it, right? But
there's a lot of conveniences that just happen because the plot is happening.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh, well, why is he kicking him out the shift? Because, it's I think I sent you that's Pitch Me. That was the
yeah,
best
it
one.
really
It's like,
was.
because the story because the
Wh-
story needs to
Why does
happen.
that do exactly? So the movie can happen.
And it really I mean, that's literally how it feels watching that movie.
Yeah.
But but the so but that I think that was his resume. That was his interview
Yeah.
for getting the Star Wars franchise later on.
Mhm.
So that's why it was created that way. And I think that maybe Alex Kurtzman thinks the same thing. Like, if I just make Star Trek look like Star Wars enough, then the Star Wars people will pick me up and pay me the big buck, the big Disney bucks.
Yeah, that I mean, there was another it was the Game of
Those brothers
Thrones.
from Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're brothers? I
same fucking
uh,
thing. Aren't
they're
they brothers?
I don't think they're brothers,
Oh,
because it's
okay.
not the
Well,
same last name, I don't think so. In any case, yeah, it's exactly what they tried to do. They tried to, like, make the intrigue and the stuff kind of more like Star Trek or Star Wars anyway. And they got picked up by Star Wars, and then they didn't wanna work on Game of Thrones anymore because they were bored of it, and they tried to get a Star Wars deal, and then they fucked it up, so now they lost the contract.
no, I didn't think they were bored of it. I thought that it was because they had already been told like, "Hey, your next project is Star Wars." And so they were like, "Okay, well, we gotta wrap up this Game of Thrones crap because
Yeah,
we're done."
yeah,
Which again might be boredom because 'cause they're like, "Yeah, we're bored with this. Like, let's wrap this up. Let's get to the Star Wars thing." And then they didn't end up getting the
it hurts me so much at that.
surprise of the whole thing.
It hurts so much. Like, I really love that series, and I love the books, and I love first 4 seasons of it, and it was such a betrayal. It's another whole other
It
topic
ruined
for
it. It
another day.
really did. It took me years now.
I still can't I can't enjoy any content of it. I can't enjoy YouTube videos very much of the topic
I
anymore.
can't watch, yeah, because I can watch a lot of lore and backdrop videos for, like, Lord of the Rings and stuff,
Yeah,
but
and I can't do A Song of Ice and Fire. I just can't do it. Like, it hurts too much that that show had to end like that, and that we're never going to get another book. And
yep.
w we need to stop hoping. The series died, like, he didn't finish his books. They tried to do an adaptation on the show, and it was terrible, and it sucks that such a good, intriguing thing had to not work out, but that's just how life is sometimes, right?
It is unfortunate,
Yeah,
but that sometimes these things are businesses and
they
that
fail.
the art often takes a back seat to the business decisions. And again, maybe that's it. Maybe the studio, but I think at this point, like the studio would the state
Mhm,
of the franchise, the state of the IP in Paramount's hands
mhm,
has to be in such a slump. Like I could see one of two things. Either it's panic mode in the studio where they're like, no, you need to get the studio bigwigs in there to make these decisions because the showrunners are fucking it up.
mhm,
And that's why it turns out as bad as they are because those C-suite the types, they're as out of a touch as anyone else is
mhm,
what the audience wants. And there's been tons of shit, tons of stuff ruined because they didn't understand it.
right.
They didn't understand it, so obviously the audience wouldn't understand it. So let's dumb it out. Like The Matrix is a good example, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh, well, we're going to make this collective computing consciousness. And that's why the humans are part of this world, is because they use the human brain to increase their processing power and
mhm,
stuff. And so while they do that, and that makes complete sense. We're like, well, in the show producers are like, that doesn't make any sense to us. We don't know what that means. This technology stuff is all new to everyone still. It's 1999. Come on.
and so they just like,
Do something.
like
Yeah.
batteries.
Yeah. How about batteries? Batteries are easy,
Understand
right?
batteries.
Yeah. And that's what it was. No, that's legitimately what happened.
I
At
never
least
heard that about The Matrix.
yeah, it was originally supposed to be, at least from the Wachowski, formerly known as the Wachowski brother. That was the original pitch when they were trying to get the movie made was, okay, but why are the humans enslaved? Well, they're tied up to the supercomputer and they use human brains for processing,
Wow,
information.
that's pretty cool.
And then when you think about the inverse, right, where they were like, it's batteries. Well, it's like, well, like, doesn't it take more energy to keep a human alive than the energy they would ever produce?
Yeah.
Because that's
Does
how
their
like the
body
law
heat? So, like, it doesn't yeah, that doesn't make any sense. It never did.
there's going to be losses in the system.
Yeah.
There's no perfect conversion and the human body is not a perfect vessel to create like if you ate 100 joules of energy worth of food, that's not going to equate to 100
Yeah,
joules of work,
right.
like,
It's not how it
or
works.
whatever. I don't know.
I know what you
Yeah.
mean, though, but that would be a far more interesting, at least, sub I mean, I guess that's not what the messages of The Matrix was, so it really wasn't part of it, but that still would have been far more interesting,
No, it didn't become a big part because that wasn't,
you know?
that's why it still turned out to be a good movie is because that that wasn't it
It
was a defining feature of the plot,
Yeah,
but it
important
wasn't what made the
story.
movie cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you can suspend disbelief. Be like, yeah, sure, okay, batteries, whatever.
I don't really wanna watch The Matrix. Alright, let's wrap this up so I can watch the
But that was the
movie.
thing. So, and then the studio's like, yeah, let me wash my brain.
Brain with a good movie.